Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Thursday. How are you? Good morning, or it could be good afternoon, or it could be good evening. Either way, welcome back. It's lovely to see you. This software says I'm live, and so here we all are. I've had a brilliant idea, and I'm making sure, just in case Garen is watching, that he appreciates this whole thing. So here's a brilliant idea. Okay. Here's the brilliant idea. The brilliant idea is we make assumptions. We're making too many assumptions. We are assuming of other people what we would do. And oh, how wrong that is, really. Oh, how wrong that is. So this thing is saying it's too low and action is needed. And so it's very possible that I will be waffling and warbling and in and out. We're having a lot of rain today, so maybe, I don't know, maybe the satellite. Even say it. Speaking of technical difficulties, if you will excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to scamper over here to the other screen and refresh so that I can see who's knocking at my door and saying hello. And there she is. There she is, just about nearly almost. Yeah, there she is. Click. So maybe. And then use that, and howdy. Howdy. So I used to say a lot of the time when I was working in retail and I was working in hospitality that I think there's an invisible bus. And I think that people would look at me like I should be, escorted to the padded room, and I would say, no, hear me out. The invisible bus brings people. And we don't know that because the bus is, by the way, invisible. But the invisible bus brings people, which is why suddenly there'll be a whole bunch of people walking in the door at the same time. And it happens all the time. I don't care where you are. As long as there's people, all of a sudden, there'll be a bunch of them. And they'll all want everything at the same time because they all arrived at the same time and they're on their schedule. Then this interesting thing happens. They stay and they do their thing, and you run around badly trying to look after everything. And then here's what I think happens. I think the invisible bus driver on the invisible bus honks the invisible horn. And we can't hear it, but they can. They all hear the horn. They all need their check right now. They all need to pay right now. They're all at the register at the same time. They're all trying to check out at the same time. They're all at the beach at the same time. And then they all leave at the same time. And they're gone. Slam. And everybody looks around and says, what the hell was that? And then, if you're wise, you busily get ready for the next one. Because there's always a next bus. There's always another invisible bus. And today, yesterday, and the day before that, I think the invisible bus was a convoy. And I think it's the stupid convention. Yeah. And they're all out there. And way too many of them are looking this way. Oh my God in heaven. I don't do well with stupid. I myself am perfectly capable of being stupid. But I don't do well when other people. I was smart enough to see it. And so it's my bad that I allowed stupid to get inside my perimeter and mess with my day. And and then my frustration and my fury and my my very, very effective impression of a windmill, waving my arms in the air, making strange squeaking noises, is my own fault. I mean, they are the what is it? They are the presenting problem, but I'm the root cause. That's the thing. That's that's the frustration. I allowed it to happen because, you know, they're stupid. If they're stupid, you can get out of the way and let them all run through like Bugs Bunny in that old cartoon. That cartoon, every time I see it, I keep meaning to try and figure out how to capture it, because oh my God, the madness and the foolishness of trying to, stupid people are funny. Yes. Yeah, they are funny. They are funny unless in some way, shape, or form they're standing where you needed something. They're causing a delay of some kind of momentous proportion, and then we get to deal with it. And a long time ago, I was moved by a succession of stupid people who my mentor used to say, you know, they're all out there, and every so often one of them looks this way. And you know, you can take comfort in that, but it doesn't fix the problem. The problem is stupid. It's stupid. So I got very, very annoyed one day with a client who was resolutely unable, unwilling, and unready to grasp their role in the process. You can't actually pick up a client and shove them under your arm and trundle them with you through the process. You have to, they have certain things they need to do. And when a client who, you know, in other spheres seems to be relatively coherent, it's, oh, was I supposed to do that? So I made a prop. Props are my thing. As I think you know by now, props are my thing. Because what they do is they start a conversation, or end one, depending on the prop. They start a conversation, they create a dynamic, and then you have everyone engaged in that dynamic. You have everyone already on the boat, and now it's just a question of handing out the oars and the life belts and the seat belts and all that kind of stuff. So I made this prop, and I made the prop in order to vent, except that it's really funny, and it really works in terms of diffusing the situation. So I'm going to show it to you. All right. I called it the listening brick. Does it say the listening brick? Is it backwards? Oh no, it says the listening brick. Okay, so the listening brick is in this beautiful box. And I know you're wondering if there's actually anything in there. And of course there is. So I'm going to open the box and I'm going to show you what's in it. And I'm thinking that as I tell you this, as I show you this, that I may actually get orders. And I hadn't really thought about that until this minute. But you know what? Kind of like a penny blossom situation, if you ever watched that episode of Big Bang Theory. You ready? Inside the box that says listening brick. How does it work? Well, here's what happens. When you're not listening, I bring out the brick. And I say, don't make me use this. You love it? It's rubber. I got it from a prop store, and I did the sign. And here's the thing, you know, it's like Viking motivation 101, or as I think is more appropriate, Viking therapy. How do Vikings have therapy? Sure they do. How long does it take? About 5 minutes. That'll be $100. Boof. Want to see me do it again? You have another $100? And I was not having a good day because there were too many stupids. And the reason I was not having good days is not because I love this thing. I love reason I was not having a good day was not because I was buying in and I was giving them ownership and power over me. I was not having a good day because they were continually distracting me. It's like that, you know, a chirping bird or something, or you think, is that a cricket? Is there a cricket in the house? And now you can't do the thing you were doing because it's, well, how could there be a cricket in the house, right? Your brain is off looking for the cricket. And it doesn't really matter whether you go looking for the cricket. The brain has gone looking for the cricket. So you're not going to get any work done. And so yesterday and the day before, you know, it was like a swarm of crickets. The invisible stupid tour bus had arrived. And they'd all wandered in after enough of them had run into the side of the building and realized that wasn't the door. It was the glass partition. And you stand there on the inside watching them bump into things and then go, ah, and you think, for heaven's sake, how stupid. Oh, look, there's more of them. And oh my goodness, Ryan Hagyard. Hi, cousin, how you doing? This is so cool. I have a relative watching the video. This is so cool. Oh, we love technology, and we love this cross the world, cross the miles access, because I got friends, I got family, many of both from low places, but you know, it's a work in progress. So anyway, about the stupid people. I had one of those ahas. No, wrong side. I still haven't had that aha, but I had a major aha, and I'm going to share it with you because I'm like that. People tend to get carried away in the moment. We all do. I certainly, you know, if you look up carried away in the moment in the dictionary, it's a picture of me smiling and running and waving my feather boa. And we forget that the way we look at the world and the way we assess the world and the way we use the various brain functions that we have and the various filters we have to place value on things is not the same as anybody else. In the best and most relevant way, we are all as individual, as unique as snowflakes. We're not fragile, unless, well, some of us may be. We are, however, unique. And the reason we can't remember that, although why we can't remember it, I mean, we don't look like each other. Somebody once said to me, you know, I thought I saw somebody who looked like you the other day. And I said, really? I find that hard to believe. But okay. And how is that even remotely possible? We do have doppelgangers. We do see people, we do run into people who bear a resemblance. And certainly when you look at the picture of my parents, I posted it a little earlier. If you look at my mother and my father, and you could just in your mind's eye, just zert their faces together. It's me. Their faces merged are me. And I'm still different, though, from them in many, many important ways. We all are distinct. We all are one-of-a-kind one-offs. And because we know that, because all we have to do is look in the mirror, we should be able to remind ourselves that why we do it is never going to be why they do it. How we do it and what we do it for is never going to be exactly the same as whatever their motivations are and whatever their parameters are. They're never going to be the same, right? It's just not going to happen. So when we are blindsided by, well, why didn't they? Yeah, that's That's just, you have just joined the stupid tour. Did you want a seat at the front or by the window? Because we trade away some of our stress and some of our time and energy in order to gain a result. We give away some of our control and some of our power, and we give it to other people because they need some control and some power in order to do the task assigned. Where we fall apart is thinking they will do it the way we would do it, and it ain't going to happen. A long time ago, I was teaching at a community college, teaching how to go and ask for a job in broadcasting once you've studied broadcasting and graduated. And I said, here's a really important thing to remember. The last thing the person interviewing you wants is to spend money on somebody who is at the front end of the learning curve. Because spending money on you when you don't know anything is a sunk cost. It's a gamble. It's a risk. And if the person owns their own business, they worked hard to get that business off the ground. And they resent like hell the idea that they're going to give away some aspect of their assets on the off chance that you turn out to be a good choice. They resent it like hell. So when you walk into the interview, they may be sitting there with a smile on their face, but the person inside their head is with the arms folded saying, all right, here we go. And not only do they not relish the idea of handing over their money to you and handing over responsibility to you and control to you, they resent the time they're forced to take to have the conversation with you in the first place, because they're busy. What are they doing? Oh, they're running the company. And they're run off their feet. They run off their feet because it's going too well and they need to hire somebody. So when you bring somebody in and they know nothing, they're still trying to figure out which is the door and which is the glass partition, and they see you trying to get into the building and they think, I can't even. They are investing their faith, their money, their time, their control, their reputation on the hope that you will actually be able to absorb the training and care enough to do a good job in exchange for the money and the position and the control you get. They hope that. They hope, with all their little fingers and toes crossed, that you may in this moment be a sunk cost, but you will become an asset. And when you become an asset, because you actually listened to what they said, you cared to do a good job, and you increased productivity in some way, you become a part of their return on their investment. And that's what they're paying into. That's what they're buying into. Where it gets crazy and where we have to own it is reminding ourselves that we need to pay attention. We need to look at people and say, that's a sunk cost, sooner than later. We can't know. We can't know that people are a sunk cost. We can't, unless it's obvious, you know. Unless they're wearing their pants backwards and they've got one shoe on their head. I mean, I worked in a restaurant once. One of the times I worked in a restaurant, and one of the waitresses said, "Oh, is that the schedule?" And I said, "Yeah." And I looked at the schedule and I said, "Oh, we're on the same shift. We're working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday." And she said, "Yeah, I don't really know what I want to know when I'm working. I want to know when I'm off." So here's the math, right? If you know when you're working and you subtract it from the 7 days, that would be when you're off. And I said that, and she said, "Yeah, so like, am I off on Sunday?" most of the time, the word I heard her say was, "What?" In that tone. And I immediately, after work, want to buy the person a drink who was dealing with her because they've earned it. So this business of stupid is funny when we can get distance from it, when we can find a way to step back far enough and say, oh my God, remember the time. However, in the moment, when you've all just realized that the boat is about to go over the falls, is not the time for someone on the boat to say, so it's my break. Can I take my break early? No, you can't take your break. All breaks are suspended. Row, damn it, row. The other way. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our peace of mind. We owe it to our good outcomes, our health, our mental health, our physical health, to pay attention, to look after us. And the other side of the stupid conversation is that there's a lot of damage that can be done, and feelings can be hurt. People who are hanging on by a thread can feel crushed beyond the size of what was done to them, because they're not in a place where they have the tools to cope. And this is part of the decision-making processes that we are required to do as we're walking around here on this planet, is to not be everybody else's caretaker and caregiver, but recognize when people are hanging on by a thread, because asking them to do more could break them. And that's part of what happened in the lead up to this whole concept of creating the Pivot Tree in Motion series, is watching the TV show Cannonsworth Driver, the drivers say, now what, is very frustrating. So did I pass? No, you didn't. I hear you, Garen. I hear you. I think that deserves a comment from Thor, don't you? The idea that there are people out there who aren't paying attention for any number of reasons. They have their own agenda. They grew up getting away with doing lip service. Nobody ever told them there was going to be a price to pay. And if they did tell them, it rolled off their shoulders, it rolled off their back, because for some reason the price wasn't worth it. People who we have allowed into our lives who say helpful things like, well, I'm here, aren't I? You know, not for long. It's the phrase that I have to. Oh, my screen froze and I'm looking up. That's hysterically funny. Screen froze. Looking up like that is the same thing as that. And you know what's funny? There are two things that I've done in my career that have made me the most money. One is sing, and the other is that. And I think that I got paid to sing more than one time, probably because of a whole disbelief quotient. But the eye roll, the dead eye, I think resonates with so many people. Why? Because people have not engaged in the process. They're just kind of floating along. What? Why? Windmill impression in 3, 2. And the only way that doesn't happen is, I don't know, if you go and stand all alone in a corner somewhere, but eventually you have to come out. Eventually you have to deal with the world. And how we do that, how we take our control back, how we claim our space is tricky, and it's all wrapped up in this whole pivotry in motion concept. And there's 3 reasons I'm doing the books. There's 3. The first one is that the book is going to be, the individual books that people are featured in, is going to be a lovely opportunity for them to say, I'm heard and I'm seen, and my story has value. That's priceless. And I am thrilled and honored and just so excited to create that window of opportunity. And I can. I've done it before, and every time I do it, I see that look of acceptance and validation. I hear it in their voices. They walk a little taller because they know, here's the book, God damn it. Here's the proof. Here's the proof that somebody heard me. They didn't only hear me. They listened. They wrote it down. And they thought it mattered enough that they printed it. They published it. And they not only put my name on it, they put their name on it. I am so honored to be able to do that, because in so many ways, were you ever paid to stop singing? As a matter of fact, Karen, no. I've been uninvited to sing, but nobody's ever handed me money to say, here's $10, go away. What an interesting question. And isn't that an interesting answer? I think there's a whole level of relief and is she gone involved that it's never occurred to me before. But this business of signing up and not just standing up, but showing up and doing the thing you're there to do. These are steps that we don't necessarily teach people, because we think, as I said before, we think that if it's obvious to us, clearly it should be obvious to them, and the answer is nope, it's not. So maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't grasp. Maybe they didn't show up for us. Possibly they were just getting in out of the rain. And until we ask, we don't know the answer. We need to ask. If there's 2 people in a conversation, both people have to be participating. If they're not listening, you need to be listening. You need to be watching and saying, you know, that doesn't look like keen to me. That looks like lights on, no one home. Really? Perhaps I'll ask. So I have this story to tell. And it became very funny later. Actually, when it finally became funny, I wrote it and I put it in one of my shows, one of my live shows. The show was called I Still Miss My Man, but My Aim is Getting Better. It was a live show I did at a Fringe Theater Festival. And basically it was an hour-long rant about our failings, our flaws, and our sublime indifferences. And, you know, did you double check? No. So it was about dropping balls. And And here's the story. So long ago in the distant past, once upon a time before COVID, I had a manicure. I would go every 3 weeks and get this fabulous manicure. And I made a pledge to myself that no matter how bad things got, no matter how down the moments were in my up and down show business life, I would always prioritize my manicure. I would always make that something that mattered. And the reason wasn't because of vanity. It was because I have nice hands. You know, I was gifted the DNA. My mother used to say, I have hands that look like they've never done an honest day's work. They look like a dancer's hands. They don't look like they're capable of anything, which is untrue. I'm capable of many things, but my hands don't. And one day when I was doing a show, my character had required a manicure, and I'd never had a proper manicure done. I'd gone to this salon, and they said, well, I think we should put nails on you. I have nails. Can't you just color them up? No, longer nails because of the character. So all of a sudden I had these long, elegant, fabulous, perfect nails. And she randomly picked a color that I have since retained forever because it is the absolute ideal, perfect color match for me and my skin and my attitude about everything. And so that was my priority. And there were times when I really did have to choose between, you know, was I willing to eat salad all week in order to have my manicure? And I did. I made that choice because the salad or steak or chicken or whatever, it's food. It's delicious. It's not delicious. But the manicure made me feel like I was walking here. I was able to own that small gesture that said, I matter. And there were times when it was a lot more important and a lot more essential for my peace of mind and my balance and my okayness, when a lot of other bad, frustrating, terrifying, exhausting things were happening directly to me that I didn't just wander into. Sometimes that manicure was the way I grounded myself. So it was important. I never really spent a lot of time explaining that to people because it wasn't relevant to other people, but it was relevant to me. And I share it with you for you to understand why this story took me to windmill level. So I had driven I bought a farm. I bought a hobby farm, which is a whole other conversation. It's a whole other conversation under the category of boundaries and how hard can that be. It was for another day. And so I had driven into town to get the manicure done. And I was driving back out of town to the farm. It was about a 45-minute drive. And it had started to rain. And we're driving down the highway, you're driving down the highway, and the trucks come this way. The trucks come this way, and the trucks go all over your windshield, right? You're this way, they're that way, large truck, and then there's another one, and because it's a highway. And so I pushed the windshield button thing, the wiper washer thing, and nothing happened. The wipers went, but they didn't take the serious gunk off the window. It was raining, but it didn't take the... So I pulled over to the side of the road because I had washer fluid in the car. And I reached down to pull the hood release, and it wouldn't. It was stuck. And I thought, well, and I said something Brooklyn-worthy. And I looked at traffic, and I signaled, and I got back on the highway, and I drove into the little town that was, 5 minutes from my farm, and I drove up to the service station where I always got gas and so on. I knew the owner very well. And I pulled in under the, and I, rolled down the window. And this large young man, who still had a lot of his baby fat and was about 7'3". So he was 7'3" by about 7'2". He's this, go out of the car. And he's dressed in the uniform, and I thought, ooh, new employee. And so I rolled in, and he says, help you? And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, you can. I've run out of windshield washer fluid, and I have the jug in the back, but for some reason I can't, I pulled over and I tried, I can't get the hood release mechanism to work. So I was wondering if you could do that for me. And he said, sure. So I opened the door, it's under the awning, so I'm not going to get wet, and I got out. And I stood there, and he reached in with his one arm, and he went, yoink! And the hood didn't move. And he looked down at his hand. And then he looked over at me. He looked down at his hand again, and he came out of the car, and he turned to me, and he put out his hand, and he said, here. And on it was the handle of the hood release cable. Here. And I said, here? What do you mean here? What am I supposed to do with it? And he said, I don't know, fix it? And I said, do you work here? He says, my uncle's garage. I said, walk with me. Got my umbrella. We walked over to the station. I walked in, me and 7'3", and I had the hood release handle in one hand and my umbrella in the other. He looks up, the owner, and he says, hi, Abby. And I said, hello. And if you ever hear me say hello in that tone, not good. It's not good. So I said, do you have a moment? And he said, sure, because he'd heard me say hello before. And so I closed the umbrella, and I said, who's this? He said, it's my nephew. And I said, I see. And I said, when he came to work today, is he working here? Not really. It's sort of an apprentice thing. And I said, okay, so when he came to work today, before you let him put on the uniform that indicates to brains out of his other pants. And the owner said, oh God, what's he done? And I held out my hand with the hood release on it, and I said, I asked him to pop the hood for me, and this is what he did. And then he said, here. And the owner said, yeah, okay. Put it in the bay, we'll fix it. And I said, thank you. How long is it going to take? He said, I don't know, I got to see if we have a cable. We'll fix it. I'll get you a coffee. At which point, his nephew said, I have an idea. Spoiled. Very intelligent, because the two of us turned on him. And he said, I said, what's the idea? And he said, well, I thought, you know, what you could do is you could get a water pistol. They have them over at the toy store. You could get a water pistol, and you could fill it with windshield goop, right? And then when it's raining and trucks are coming, you could just roll down the window and put the gun out and squirt it on the windshield. And I looked at his uncle, who just, you know, put his like this, and I said, here's a thought. Here's a thought for you to hold on to, cherished like a prize you've never had before. Imagine that I'm driving down the highway and a truck goes flurf, and I roll down the window and I pull out my gun and I point it in the general direction of my windshield and I go squirt, squirt. That will be the exact moment when the highway patrol will be coming the other way, and they will see me pointing a gun at oncoming traffic, and they will cross the median at 147 miles an hour, and the next words I will hear are on the ground. Really? and I'll be lucky to come out of it alive. And the kid said, I was just trying to help. And his uncle and I at the same time said, stop helping. Now, I can tell that story verbatim. I can come back next week and tell it exactly the same way because it's basically burned into my brain. Oh, look, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's an ambulance that just went by, or a police car. I'm getting ready to assume the position. Just in case. So I salvaged the handle when his uncle fixed it, when they had the parts and they put it up and they took care of it and, you know, had a coffee and apologized and we laughed and so on. I said, I need the handle. Why? I need the handle. It's going to be a prop. I'm going to use it in a show. And he said, oh God, don't mention the name of my service station. I said, I'm not going to mention the name of the service station. He said, are you going to describe my nephew? And I said, maybe. Of course. So when I did the show, the prop, the value of the prop was that people were laughing as the story unfolded because it's funny and because they're saying to themselves, better her than me. I know I would have been saying it. But then when I held up my hand with this lovely long manicure and I said, and then he said, here, and I held up my hand, and I used my other hand to hold up the handle. The audience wet its pants collectively because there it was. There was proof that I was not inventing a funny story. I was basically reading the 6 o'clock news, the latest installment in the Life and Times of Abby Hagyard. And they just howled because, first of all, until that moment, they were under the assumption that I was fairly clever. And the fact that they hadn't put the pieces together, you know, like I'd bought a farm and I was living on one, and that these kinds of things would happen to me. And every time I did a show, I seemed to have more of these stories. Had not really computed. They had not really put it all together. But when I held up that handle, a lot of them went, oh my God, this really is her life. Oh my God, is she stupid? And the thing is, the outcome is dumb. The outcome is unnecessarily inconvenienced. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why someone like me, it's not because this is my destiny, the reason someone like me gets herself into situations like that on such a consistent basis is because I'm not a Pollyanna. I don't see 100% good in everyone. It's that I'm in a hurry. I'm in a hurry to get where I want to go. I'm in a hurry because probably, you know, the wiring, the training, the programming from being a military kid is that I don't know how long I'll have. I don't know how long until I come home and there's going to be boxes in the living room and we're going to be moving. I never know how long I'll have to share this moment. And so I try to cram it in. And one of the things I cram in is the probationary period that people should be forced to go through to prove that they are worthy of a seat on my boat. People need to impose probationary periods. We all need to do that. On ourselves. Hey, I got a new appliance. How hard can that be? Do I need the instructions? Yes, you do. Read the instructions. And then after you've read the instructions, don't throw them away because you will need them the next time because you will have forgotten. Ask me how I know that. And we need to give ourselves permission to go through the learning curve. The learning curve is not a walk in the park. The learning curve is banked the wrong way, and it's a hairpin turn. And there's a truck loaded with explosives coming the other way. And when you drift, because you're not paying attention, into their lane, it won't be pretty. When I briefly had that job delivering balloons and singing, Karen, when people paid me to sing, I assumed people would know what they were supposed to do, and they didn't. And so each time I would have to remember. One of the things it never occurred to me to do was remind myself to give myself extra time passing cars and trucks on the highway, because the minute you're in the passing lane is when a balloon right beside your ear is going to explode. Murphy's Law. You know how I know, right? Bang! Yeah. Repeatedly. And then, when you manage to avoid the oncoming ambulance that's in a hurry, and you get to the place you're going, you now don't have a bouquet of balloons. You have a bouquet of balloons and a raisin hanging off the bottom of the bouquet because you didn't bring scissors to cut off. So every single one of us has the yeah, they can join me. The ship. Karen, you belong to a specific subset of Vikings known as the Berserkers. You know that, right? You know that. Just saying. There's an old saying: put the Berserkers at the front of the boat, never let them steer. We all need to put ourselves through probation. We all need to remind ourselves that if we're interviewing people for a job, you know who's the novice? Us. Because we didn't go to school to learn how to interview people for a job. We don't know what to ask. There are too many things we take for granted that everybody would know, right? Nope. And why do we take that for granted? Because we've been at it such a long time, we forgot stuff that we just automatically do. It has become programmed. We don't think about it anymore. So the probationary period is pretty much when you're leaving the house: phone, keys, wallet, brains, pants. Take the moment. And the reason we need to do that, on the more serious side of this, is that I've explained all the lighthearted things, and I've told the funny story, because it is my nature to find a way to make the monsters manageable. And it is my nature to do that because I intend to win, and I can't win if I'm afraid. So I ain't going to be afraid. I ain't afraid of no monsters. They're only this big. So what happens to us when we get out of the habit of checking? What happens when we get out of the habit of going through our probationary check? Like the flight check before you get on in the plane as the pilot. You know, wings, check. Manual, check. Someone who knows how to fly this thing? Check. As we go through our checklist, before we engage, before we step out into today's adventure, today's journey, today's challenge, today's, good morning, Lyle. Before we step out into the world, we do a check to minimize the damage before it happens. And why this matters so much is when we are already damaged, and we are already on the edge, and we are already out of options. And the choice we're about to make might be the last bit of energy, faith, belief, willingness, passion, drive we have before we melt down. We need to do a check, a mental check, a gut check, a brain check for us. We matter. We need to protect us against the invisible bus. We need to make sure we're not on the invisible bus. We don't want to be driving it. We want to be over here, watching the invisible bus go by. I know people personally who have gone through difficult moments. I know people personally who have recurring flashbacks of those difficult moments. I know people and love people who continue to get up and do the right thing in the right moment. And they have learned to find a place to carry that baggage in a way that doesn't harm their joy and their love and their passion of this moment today. Because we all carry those things with us. We store them away so we don't keep tripping over them in the middle of the living room. But they're always there. And we need to find a way to make the journey easy for us. Because we matter. And if we don't matter to us, if we're not going to look after us, who will? Right? So when people, this is a hey, you know what? When people say, oh my God, I don't know what I can do. You know what doesn't help? Thoughts and prayers. My thoughts are with you. Really? Can you lend me $5 and a chair so I can sit down for a minute before I buckle at the knees? I used to say to people, to clients who were passionate about what they were doing, it's really important when you're going to market yourself, when you're going to talk to people about what you do. It's really important when you step into that conversation that the first thing you do is you make sure they're okay. You make sure that they can hear you. And you can say, is this a good time? And you can ask them if they have a minute. What you really need to be doing is looking at them and listening to them and watching how they behave. Because a lot of people will be polite. Oh, what? Yeah, sure, fine. Except that it's not. And if you want your message heard, if you want your idea adopted and adapted and embraced by other people, you have an easier chance of that happening if you make sure that you have come to them at a good time. And the analogy I would use is I would say, let's say you've written a book or you've invented something amazing. You've had one of those. And you want to tell everybody about it because you're just so excited and you're over the moon. And you go across the street to your friend's house and you knock on the door. And they open the door. And astonishingly, their pants are on fire. Their pants are engulfed in flames. And they look fairly panicky. Now, you have two choices. The first choice is to say, oh my God, how can I help? That's the first choice. It should also be the second, third, and 47th choice. The other choice is, hi, have I come at a bad time? Listen, I want to tell you about my new idea. It doesn't matter how great the idea is. If their pants are on fire, they can't hear you. If their pants are on fire, they are in the midst of having third-degree burns. So, on the other hand, you could say, oh my God, your pants are on fire. Here, let me get a bucket full of water. Let me grab you in this blanket and roll you. Let me do what I can to help make this go away. That's what you can do. You know what happens after the fire is out and they've stopped screaming and panicking and their breathing is back to normal and it's not and they're not sobbing brokenly? You know what happens right after that? They turn to you and they say, oh my God, thank you. Oh my God, you saved my life, thank you. And not today, but the next chance they get, they will repay you. And they will repay you bigger than any sale you could have made that day. Give to get. Listen to learn. See to understand. When the person hires you and they say, well, I'm looking forward to having you join the team. Do you have any questions? The first question shouldn't be, yeah, when do I get vacation? Get out. We are in this together. Every single one of us is capable of climbing aboard the stupid bus. Every single one of us. I do it at least 47 times a day. And then I hear the bikers from Brooklyn say, are you listening to you? And I laugh or cry. Step away and say, okay, probationary period is back on. I have to earn the right to do these things because I'm going to hurt me one of these days. We are all there in that moment. And while we are trying to manage painful, difficult, important things, while we are coping with surprises that aren't funny, that we didn't see coming, we need to clear the decks. We can't leave all our junk, our laziness, our what? Hanging around to get in our way. We need to be ready for the crisis before it comes. My dad, my sainted father, my dad used to say a lot of things. One of them, when we were playing tennis, and he would teach me, do this or go, 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 go. He would say, get on the balls of your feet. Stop standing there flat-footed. I'm not flat-footed. He meant flat on the ground. He said, stop standing there flat-footed like a duck. Get on the balls of your feet. What? Why? He said, because you have to be ready. You have to be ready when the ball comes. Do you know how long it takes you to recognize that the ball is coming and send the message to your brain to get off the heels of your feet and onto the balls of your feet so you're ready to pivot and run and move and respond and return the shot to win the game? Do you know how long that takes? Too long. Get on the balls of your feet. Stay there. Stay there. He would say it to me every day. Every day. I didn't see that coming. No. Were you on the balls of your feet? No. Right. Thanks, Dad. Thanks for the pep talk. Viking pep talk. Wham. Listening prick. Wham. I used to say to people when they would say, what, do you always wear high heels? Of course. Absolutely. Why? I mean, there must be times when you don't. Well, once or twice. I never wear high heels when I'm in the shower. Absolutely guaranteed. But why do you wear them all the time? Because they keep me on the balls of my feet. I'm ready. All the time. Every day. Unless I accidentally got on the stupid bus. And then, on those days, I have a story to tell. I have a lesson to share. Like today. Isn't that amazing? So, have I gone too long? Oh goodness, yes I have. Oh well, here's the thing about the video today. I am offended when people are rude and abusive and feel that it's perfectly okay to trespass my boundaries. I'm offended. A lot of the time, I will make allowances if I think that they don't know any better. And then I try to educate them. What I fail to do far too often is pay attention to the way they think. I fail to recognize that they're not really in the game. They're spectating. They want to know when vacation is. They want to know not when they're working, but when they're off. And when I have invited them into my boat because I was willing to invest in a sunk cost, I pay the price when that's all they are and all they will ever be. A sunk cost to me. I pay the price when they have no intention of becoming an asset. I believe it's my job to see that, recognize it, and if I can't correct it, stop being the one who does the hiring. Find somebody who's better at it than I am. Clearly, it's not my strength. And when we find ourselves overwhelmed, we need to look at the reason. Usually the reason is we were so invested in what we were doing, we forgot to look up. We forgot to look at what was coming. We forgot to analyze what we saw. And we gave it the benefit of the doubt. Think back to that silly story about the gas station. I went there all the time, twice a week. I knew the owner well. I'd never seen that kid. I'd never seen that kid before in my life. I'd never seen him around town. Small town, farming community. I'd never seen him. I'd never seen him. He came lumbering out and he said, "Help you?" I should have said, "Do you work here?" But he was wearing the uniform. I should have said, "Are you trained to work on cars?" But I figured, since he's wearing the uniform, he's at the place, and he said, "Help you." You see where I dropped the ball? You see? It's all on me that a large lumbering lunk I'd never seen before probably wasn't experienced in this industry. And I stepped aside and invited him to help me. And he thought he did. Here. He could have thrown it over his shoulder into the rain. Here. So it's on us to police our boundaries. It's on us to use the listening brick on us when we deserve it. It's on us to check both mirrors before we pull out into traffic. It's on us to check that mirror before we hit the brakes. Because we got into the car in the first place. The journey we're on, my lovelies, is amazing. We are creating a conversation between us. We are creating a tribe, a community. We are building people who join us on a regular basis because they enjoyed the last one. And that is amazing. You're investing your time. You're investing your intention. And then you're telling other people how much fun it was. And that is priceless. And I am very grateful. So here we are. By the way, this is episode 60. 60 videos, 2 times a week, every week, since November last year. I hope that you are enjoying them as much as I am. I am learning so much about the goals I want to reach and the path that I'm on by doing this. It's allowing me to process ideas and sort them out in my head so that when I sit down and insert them into the projects I'm working on, I'm coming out ahead, which is wonderful. Here's what I would like you to do for me, for us, for you, for what's coming. Tell your friends. I know you've liked this. I know you've commented. I know some of you are sharing. Please share it on your own pages, would you? Please share it. Copy and share. And when you have a chance, if you know people who like watching YouTube, tell them I'm there. Tell them the Abby Hagyard has a channel, right? The Abby Hagyard. Mom has a channel. Oh my God, Mom has a channel. Tell them Mom has a channel. And they get to meet the real Mom, the person behind the Mom, the person who pivoted to become Mom. And together we can really build something that is going to blow people away. I was working yesterday on the cover concept for Pivotry in Motion. And it's really coming together. I'm excited. Sometimes you need to do that. You need to set the writing aside and build the box that it comes in so that you can see what the finished product is going to look like when it's sitting on a shelf. And I'm excited. There's going to be 7 books in the series. The first book is almost done. I've already done the first rough drafts of the interviews that I did. So that means that the next 5 books are already taking shape, which is wonderful. And then the last book is going to be the how-to, the hands-on, the instructions. Just in case you wanted to do it again. Is that awesome or what? Okay, so Thursday. Raining like there's no tomorrow, like we're building arcs out here. I hope the weather where you are is okay and that you're safe and that everything is going well. If people are trespassing on your boundaries, you need to give yourself permission to say, excuse me, I'm walking here. And in this moment, I'm going to pivot and walk away. You have permission to do that. Because they're your boundaries. They're your boundaries. Even if all you do is say, I'll be back in a minute, I just have to go over here. They don't get to follow you and say, but why? But I this and I that. No. Excuse me. And walk away. The last thing I want to say about all of this is part of what happened in the last day or so. When something happens to you, when it just happens and you happen to walk into the middle of it, spiderweb, it's really an important thing to do to make your follow-up decision on your terms rather than anyone else's. It's really important, and I'll tell you why. Your decision is yours to make. It's yours to own. It's yours to be proud of. Therefore, you need to make it for you, not because of them. Why they failed to show up, while they did what they do, that's theirs to own. That's them. You need to look after you. Because we can't change them. All we can do is cause them the utmost damned astonishment. Okay, you beautiful people. Thank you. I will let you go for now. The weekend is upon us. We have a couple of holidays here in Canada. And people are going to do what people do on the holidays. And so be safe. Be safe. Think about the fact that this is the long game, not the short run. We're here for the long time. And it should be made up of many good times, not just one. Maybe we need to rewrite that song. I'll get Garen to help me sing it. Okay? Have a great weekend. Be good to you. Be good to you. And hug your loved ones. Boy, what they go through. And I'll catch you next time. Thank you.